And welcome to Nostalgia Alley. We have a fantastic guest. We're going to talk about design. And if we look around the studio, we desperately need your help, Jenny. We want to get this going here. Jenny Zanfrilli is the owner and president of VHZZ Designs and a resident of South Orange for 30 years.
Yes.
You don't look old enough to be a resident for 30 years.
Thank you.
And was one of the founding members of the Montrose Park Historical District Association. We're going to talk about that later. VHZ Design is located in South Orange and is a full-service interior design firm that provides creative and unique, we're going to talk about some of the unique solutions for residential and commercial establishments. Award-winning projects have been included in such publication as Design New Jersey, New Jersey Monthly, Traditional Home, Morris Health and Life, and also featured in the book Design in New Jersey, a collection of New Jersey's finest designers, which you are one. Thanks for coming on. Got to ask you the big question, how did you get started?
When I graduated college with a fine arts degree, I was looking for employment and had the fortunate opportunity to meet someone who was the owner of an office furniture dealership, a small local firm. And I started there, and from there went on to another dealership where I put in a considerable number of years and learned commercial interior design and developed that into residential design. And here I am today, many years later.
When you were a youngster, did you redesign your parents' house?
Yes, I was busy redesigning my house, my room, yes.
Now, how does design impact the human experience?
Oh,
that's a big question.
It's a big question, and it is today's focus. Design really is critical in everything that we have to experience today. It's just not our homes, but our commercial environments, our business environments, our medical facilities, our educational facilities, sustainability, everything is really all wrapped up into one. And we really have to generate and create solutions that empower people, that allow them to have a secure, safe environment, allows them to restore their well-being, and far cry from just shelter and just being pretty. So we really have to.
It is an experience.
It's
a home is a place for relaxation, solace. It's all those things. Does our environment reflect the way we live and work?
Well, it needs to reflect the way we live and work. It needs to provide us the functionality and the safety and the security that we need as human beings, that we need for our psychological well-being as well as our personal safety.
Now, what are the guidelines when you're looking for an interior designer? What are the criteria? I mean, because it's like a marriage, two people married together as one and solving solutions.
It absolutely is a marriage, and it needs to develop into a good, solid relationship. Certainly, background and experience and knowledge of the industry, of products, of what determines good design, and all the issues that one has to face in either space planning, selection of materials, selection of furnishings, and layout. But it's also a question of, are they a good listener? Do they understand what the client wants? you know, everybody's a little different. Everybody has a different outlook. Everybody has different solutions and different expectations. And we have to meet all those issues to have a positive result and an outcome.
Now, how do you handle it when your design differs from what the client wants? How do you kind of round things out with that?
Well, a client, I've been asked that question so many times. It really is a question of what the client wants. It's not a question of what I want. It's my job to interpret what they're looking for, what their personalities are like, what their lifestyle is like, what meets their needs, and glean all that information by watching, listening, looking at their existing homes and how they, you know, what materials they have and how they surround themselves. Are they stay at home? Are they both working parents? Are there children? Are they looking at a change in their lifestyle? Are they going to be downsizing, perhaps moving, perhaps relocating? These are all questions that we ask and gather information.
I imagine that when you go to a person's home and you look around at how it's furnished and the different trinkets and collectibles and things around the house, you have to be not only a psychologist but a detective.
Somewhat, yes. Yes, absolutely. Because it gives you an insight of what the people are like and what they're looking for, without question.
What inspires you as a designer?
Oh, so many things inspire me as a designer. You know, the challenge of solving an issue, solving a problem, finding out what needs to be resolved. Good design is really, you know, something that I look for constantly. New materials, new products, new solutions. Those are all inspiration to me.
And as a designer, I imagine you're responsible for the furnishings. Let's say a person likes a type of antique. Is it a search to get those items in the home as far as what a person lives with? Sometimes we have to search for great lengths to find the perfect piece. Sometimes these are pieces that the client already owns and wants to incorporate into the finished design. So we come in, we photograph, I measure, I document, and create a whole file of what items they own and how they can be repurposed. My wife always yells at me when I buy something. I never measure it. I never measured a thing in my life. Just, oh my God! Do you have instances where someone orders a couch and they can't get it through the door?
Oh, yes.
What happens?
Believe it or not, we have a manufacturer who can disassemble, take apart a sofa, bring it into the room, and reassemble it as if no one ever knew.
It never happened.
Never happened.
A thing that interests me is color is something that affects people. How do you, I know there's certain good colors and certain bad colors. It depends on the room. Tell us a little about the psychology of colors.
Well, color is very, very important. My philosophy of color is that it has to have a certain consistency. It has to flow from one space to the other. Doesn't necessarily mean it all has to be the same color or the same shade, but there has to be a level that creates an easy transition from one area to the next. And even if the color is white, there are so many whites, so many shades of white, so many tints of white that you create interest by blending these different levels of that color together.
What I found fascinating, you take something like McDonald's, they have it designed with colors and furniture so people do not want to linger there. They want to have their food and get out. And that's a whole other, the reverse of the coin in that type of psychology.
It is.
What were some of the challenges you had, or maybe the biggest challenge you had as a designer?
Well, we have a very interesting challenge going on at the moment. We finished a project that we worked on for several years and completed it, and it's absolutely exquisite and spectacular. And then the client has made a decision to move.
Oh, my.
They're not moving very far away, but they are moving, and it's a whole nother renovation, and we're recreating we're not recreating, we're creating a new space. And the challenge is to take so many of their pieces, which they literally just purchased, reuse them into the new space, but still give the new space a completely different look, which is a project that we're involved in right now. To make it even more interesting, we have a very limited amount of time. There's a limited window of when the construction can be done and when all the furnishings will be ready. So everything that has to be selected will be purchased, stored, and brought in 1-2 week period, the entire space.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, what are the common mistakes the average person makes when they decorate their house? I mean, there must be a long, long list of do's and don'ts.
There are a few. Sort of to your point, people who don't necessarily measure before they purchase
Guilty.
is an issue. Many people just don't have a real understanding of scale and proportion and how things have to relate to one another. Paint colors is a very big issue. I've gone into more homes with
Pink colors.
terrible paint colors that have been
Paint colors.
and convince the client that if we just do some changing, and even though it's going to require repainting a space that they may have just recently painted, it will make the difference, and it does. I have gotten many calls saying, Jenny, thank you so much for convincing us to do this.
Now, I wonder, one of the problems is if you have a little tiny room to make it look bigger, that must be a real challenge.
Well, there are ways to do that. Sometimes you do the reverse. You have a small room, you'll use bigger pieces of furniture to create a different scale. And you may use lighter colors. Some people are always afraid of using dark colors when you're in a small space because they think it'll confine it and make it feel small, when in actuality it will make it feel very rich and it'll make it feel like a little jewel box. So you have to guide a client carefully through that and be willing to take some chances.
Your firm, and we're going to go on break in about 2 minutes. What's the philosophy of your firm?
Our philosophy is really to find the correct solution for a client, to meet their needs, to create a space that reflects their lives and really is about them. People ask me very often, well, what's your style? It's not my style. It's what style what you're looking for. If you want it to be traditional, if you want it to be contemporary, if you want it to be period, you want it to be light, you want it to be dark. These are all factors that I will incorporate into the final design.
What are the trends today? Is a certain trend now in designing that people are looking for?
One trend is gray. Everybody
Gray?
Gray.
Kind of
is
depressing color,
very
though, isn't it?
popular. Not
Not
really,
necessarily?
because again, there are so many shades
Right.
of gray. From cool.
There was a naughty
to-
movie about that, wasn't there?
Oh, very. But that's definitely a trend right now.
Fantastic. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go on break.
All right.
When we get back, we're going to talk about Montrose, the historic area of Montrose, which has some unbelievably gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous houses, mansions galore, and, some of the restrictions of Montrose, all about Montrose. So while you're waiting for us to come back, do some decorating, do some painting, move a couch, do something. I think you're going to love it. Anyway, stand by. We're coming right back. Don't touch that dial.
After 17 years working as a mason, Mike was laid off. I met him when he came into the library looking for help. He found a job opening, but the application was only online. Mike said he'd spent his entire life around tools, but had never used a computer. I showed him how, and he ended up applying for numerous jobs online. I saw Mike the other day. His new computer skills paid off. He's working again.
New Jersey libraries are transforming lives. Tell us your story.
We're we're back again. I love the way you moved that couch, what you did with the furniture, unbelievable. Anyway, one of the founding members of the Montrose Park Historical District Association. What is that? Explain to people who don't know about Montrose.
Oh, Montrose is a very, very special neighborhood in South Orange. It was established in the early 1800s, and it is filled with classic architecture of many, many periods and styles, and it's just a wonderful place to live, and has been or was established by Mr. John Graham Vose, and as he developed the area, he set very specific restrictions as to how it should be developed so that it would always be an affluent area for the businessmen and families that were now moving out of Newark and looking to move to the suburbs.
And talking about Montrose, you have a phenomenal home in 1917.
It was built in
Featured in what magazine? Let's hold it up.
Featured in Design, New Jersey.
Design New Jersey, and it's a wonderful article, and the way you decorated for Christmas, absolutely so gorgeous, so terrific.
Whoops, there you go.
When you have it designed like that, it's such a gorgeous thing for Christmas. You just hate to take it down. I mean, it just should be Christmas all the time.
Ask my husband, it stays up for a very long time.
That's good. Anyway, 1917. Tell us the history of the home.
Oh, it has a wonderful story. It was being built by a gentleman. I don't know who the original person was, but it was being built, and it was going to be for his fiancée. He was getting married. For whatever reason, as the story goes, the engagement was called off, and that gentleman happened to work for the gentleman that in a Newark business, who knew that he was building the house, knew that the engagement was off, and said to him, "Well, what are you going to do with the house?" He said, "I'm going to have to sell it." He said, "Well, I'm getting engaged, so perhaps we might be able to work something out."
As long as they weren't getting engaged to each other.
They were not getting engaged to each other. So as the story has been told to me, Mr. Radel, who was the person who eventually bought the house, went to his wife and said, there is this home in South Orange. I'd like you to see it and tell me whether you would like it for when we get married. And he took her there, and she said, "Oh, absolutely, it would be wonderful." And then some time passed, and he said to her, "I am so sorry, darling. It didn't happen. I feel terrible, but we'll find another home." And in those days, they went out for a ride, and with their parents, her parents, because you didn't go by yourself, and he drove up to the house, and he said, "Do you still like it?" And she said, "Oh my God, of course." And he handed her the deed and said, "This is your wedding present."
Wow. Quite
Isn't
a
that
wedding. That's
wonderful story?
Fantastic. Wow.
And from what I've been told, they lived there for she passed away earlier, but he lived there until he was in his 80s. And they had wonderful parties. And it was always an inspiration to me that they would have the florist, orange florist, come in and decorate the whole house for the holidays. And they had fabulous parties and entertained. And it just is a spirit that still remains in the house today.
Now, when you saw the house, was it love at first sight?
Instantly.
Instantly?
Even though there was a lot, it was tired, and another owner had done, not that they had destroyed it, but they certainly didn't bring it up to the level of where it should be. And when my husband and I saw it, we just fell in love with it, and we were lucky enough to be able to purchase it.
In fact, we had, your husband on the show last time. We're keeping it in the family.
Yeah, I know.
And he must supply with a lot of things. The king of eBay. My God.
The king of eBay. Yes, absolutely, absolutely, he does.
Chestnut trim, which you can't find today. A lot of homes have that, but I guess it's just disappeared entirely.
It was a blight. There was a blight that destroyed all the chestnut trees, and it really is gone. Our house happens to have chestnut paneling in the dining room and coffered ceilings in the dining room and the living room and wainscot, and it's just beautiful, and it's been there since the day it was built.
Now, some of the other famous people, what are some of the other famous houses in the district?
Oh, well, there's a wonderful book in the library called The Gems of South Orange, and it gives a pictorial story of who was owned, but 2 houses down from us had been the Bamberger's estate.
Bamberger's department store.
Department store. The owner of Lord and Taylor, Mr. Lord, had a property there. The president of Wiss Cutlery had a home, and of course, John Vose and Mr. Kingman were developers that, originally started it, and Kingman continued it, also had homes in the area, fabulous homes.
Now, are these wonderful homes protected? How are they protected? Is there any protection against change and tearing them down?
There's limited protection
Limited.
from the fact that we're a historical district. So we do have some protection against government development. And South Orange has been working very, very hard, and I think finally has the historical preservation ordinance where we can try and save as much as we can. But over the years, we have lost some valuable properties.
And you were telling me about a real tragedy of a house that was actually destroyed. Tell us a little bit about and your effort to save it.
Yes, many, many years ago, and this was not in Montrose, but on the corner of Ridgewood Road and South Orange Avenue was the parish house for St. Andrew's Church, which is on the diagonal corner. And it was a wonderful Victorian wood structure. And when the condominium complex was being built on the same side, in order to meet land coverage, the house was going to be destroyed, taken down. I tried desperately back then to see if the house could be saved. The developer had offered it to me for $1, but it was my responsibility to find a new home for it, which at that point in my life was difficult because we couldn't find a property that really could accept it. And unfortunately, it was lost. So.
Plus, you were mentioning to me, even if it could have been moved, there was a lot of trouble finding land for that house.
Yes, because South Orange is a
Pretty well
developed
built.
community, so it was very difficult. And it could be moved, but at that point in time, it entailed lowering the power lines. PS&G would have to come in and lower all the lines, and we had to post a bond to the town government, to the town village, and it was just a very complicated procedure. But yeah.
Wow. Couldn't put it in a shopping bag, couldn't
Oh, I would
couldn't
have
do
loved
that.
to.
That would have been great.
I would have loved to.
Now, you have an old house, a Victorian, let's say. Where do you find the people to do the repairs? I mean, that must be, you don't have the workmanship today, or the people. I mean, where do you find that?
Well, you have to search. And now that you have the internet, and now that you have a lot of publications that are geared to restoration, preservation, you can find it. But many times it's word of mouth. It's from your neighbors who have older homes, who are looking, used people. We've been fortunate. We've had stained glass restorers. We've had expert carpenters who've been able to come in and take it apart and put it back together again without you ever knowing it was touched. So, but it is a search.
It is a search, I imagine. Now, imagine there's a conflict. You have a Victorian, or you have an old house. You want to modernize it, but yet you want to keep the authenticity of the house. That's a delicate, I bet you've had a lot of experience doing
It's
that.
a very delicate process, and you want to be as conscientious as possible and be true to the architecture, but our lives are different now. You know, we entertain, we do big kitchens, we do open spaces. You know, sometimes you have to sacrifice the back staircase or the mud room, or you repurpose it into a new mud room. I mean, even in our own home, we did some renovations, very few renovations, but we we had to take away a side entrance where the Iceman used to come.
Oh, wow.
The old refrigerator used to be there, and the drains were in the floor. When the ice melted, it used to drain down into the sink in the,
Nice.
in
Bit
the,
of
in the
history.
laundry area. So, but by opening up the space, we could accommodate, a comfortable kitchen.
Now, your son has a restaurant in New York?
Our son has a bar, a hidden bar.
A hidden bar?
A hidden bar. It's wonderful. And it's a little tricky to find it. It is called The Roost, but from the street side, it looks like a cafe, a little European cafe, and which it is. You can go in and you can get your espressos and your cappuccinos and pastries from Balthazar. But as the day progresses, a set of doors opens up, and then you go into a little cozy lounge area where people can take their coffee and they can work on their laptops. And then in the evening, these barn doors slide open, and there's this wonderful long post-industrial bar that he built that it's the hot spot. And it's in the East Village, and
Do you have the address?
Yes.
Let's give them the
It's
address.
222 Avenue B, and it's between 13th and 14th Street. It's just down from Peter Cooper's Stuyvesant Village.
Oh, sure, I know that.
And just look for The Roost, and it's all based on an image, a photographic image that he was researching, where the hidden, I don't know what the term would be, but the people who had hideouts in the city.
Oh, speakeasies, like a speakeasy.
Yes.
There were a lot of speakeasies down there. I mean, that must have been a hard drinking area.
That was certainly was.
Not 3 times Joe sent me, and
Yeah,
there you get what you
exactly.
need here. That's great. If people want to get in contact with you and your service, how do they do that?
Very easily. VHZ Design Group. We're at 560 Center Street in South Orange. We can be contacted by email, which is vhzdesign@vhzdesign.com. And our phone number is 973-674-7400. And we also have a website, www.vhzdesign.com.
We're a .com society.
We are a
This is something new.
.com.
Like 20 years ago, we didn't know what a .com was.
That's so true.
But that's great. Well, listen, thank you for being on the show, and really appreciate it. And, Jenny Zonfrelli is the woman. If you need your house done, she is absolutely terrific. The imagination, her creativity. And I can tell it's something you really love to do, but a smile on your face.
I do. I love it every single day. I love every challenge, and I just look forward to helping people.
That's great. Well, anyway, we have to say bye. So anyway, this is Mike Sobel saying good night to you, and especially to you, and looking forward to design. I just have a designing frenzy. I'm going to move the couch around the living room. My wife is going to say, "Where are you?" I'm going to say, "I'm redoing the basement."